Well, that was the backdoor part. Where's the pilot? Well, I says pilots of shows that were made, pilots of shows that were never off the ground. What about in the middle? What about a show that did get made, but wants to expand its world a bit? By dedicating an episode or two to set up something they want to make into a full show. Usually having an already established character now in a new environment, or acting with a new cast. That's what's called a backdoor pilot. And usually, you can tell pretty quickly when an episode is one. Sometimes, these actually work out. Other times, well, that's what this video is. The spin-offs never were. Throw me to look into a few backdoor pilots in cartoons. If I'm going to start this, I might as well go all the way back. The golden age of cartoons relied heavily on brand recognition. So a lot of cartoons try to set up new characters via already established stars. Sometimes the new characters will co-star with the old star, or they'll just fully take over as the main role. Probably the most iconic one is the Betty Boop cartoon, Popeye the Sailor, the very first Popeye cartoon. Betty briefly appears halfway through as a hula dancer at a fair, but besides that, this is exactly what you envision if you're asked to describe a Popeye short. Popeye is walking around breaking reality, hanging out with Olive Oil. Bluto appears and takes her. They get in a fight. Popeye loses into eating spinach, beats him and saves the day. Also, there's racism. Yeah, stereotypical Popeye short. It sets to the world pretty well, super blatant in what it is doing, but does it well. They try this game with Sally Swing, a short setting up a character of the same name that's basically just a blonde Betty, but the fact that you were just hearing about this character for the first time now shows it didn't go super well. Looney Tunes did this all the time. Porky was originally the star of the series, until the short Porky's Duck Hunt, a short about Porky hunting a specific duck, one that was quite eccentric. You could even call him Daffy. Yeah, this is where Daffy first appeared, and it's thanks to this short that Daffy and Porky are so closely tied together, as things based on the classic era are based off this dynamic. It will always prefer the more scummy loser Daffy, but this is a great way to set up one of the biggest names in animation. The real shocking thing is, do you know Elmer was a star before Bugs? Elmer appeared 3 years before Bugs' first appearance, as Toast and Rabbit he encounters in A Wild Hare, which solidifies the dynamic between the two. It's the first time Elmer says be very, very quiet, and Bugs says, "What's up, Doc?" Sets up Elmer fully as the dim-witted hunter, and Bugs is the quick-witted trickster, and just the general dynamics that you see in all their shorts. Admittedly, Bugs did appear in some of their shorts prior to this, but this is the one that set in motion that he was the main star of the show. Disney would do something similar. Mickey is of course their big star, but his sidecasts would be mined for shorts. They were a coward and didn't give one to Pete though. But Pluto, apparently, that's a big moneymaker. Pluto's Judgment Day starts with Mickey rescuing a kid and Pluto is chasing from him, but besides that, it's basically irrelevant to the short. Instead, it's about Pluto dying, being judged by Satan, and his army of dead cats. It's not a good idea to give Pluto a spin-off, because you couldn't possibly improve this. Actually, jokes aside, this is among the best old Mickey shorts. The dark tone really makes it stand out and leads to a lot of great visuals. It's all a dream, of course, so they can torture this pooch without needing to worry about the great stakes. Pluto's got it in a few shorts after this, but most really this is best. Even if it's got some humor that didn't age very well, hence why you can't find it on streaming. Moving from the classic age to the more modern age, I need a rant about the most blatant example of a backdoor pilot ever created. I was a dumb kid. I didn't know what I was being marketed to. I fell for the dumbest plot twist. I actually liked Johnny Test, but even I saw right through the Fairy Godparents episode of Crash Nebula. You can't fool me, Butch! I know what you're up to! Crash Nebula, for those who don't know, was a recurring in-universe superhero in Fairy Godparents that Timmy watched, being a spacefaring adventurer. Butch had hope in this little side character. I pitched the show to Nick, including this pilot in one episode, which is framed as an episode of the in-universe show. While art style is very unique compared to Butch's other works, the humor isn't. It's the same stuff that usually doesn't hit. Decent action, and I could see this being fun, but I'm not crying this didn't get made real. In the first few minutes, we have an old man holding cow manure with bare hands. I hope the black hole killed him. Actually, you wanna know what fully killed Butch's hopes ever making this? Even after he kept pushing this, even after they said no to the original pilot? Tough Puppy. That show being picked up fully killed the hopes of this. The chameleon killed Crash Nebula. Our hero. Oh, and that's interesting. Still Elementary School was supposed to set up Poof and Foop in a school spinoff, but it went nowhere. Seeing how Poof was hated until he came back a few decades later, now hot, probably a smart move to not make him the main star. For the most obvious pilot I'm not too bothered on being cancelled, to what's equally obvious that pains me, DuckTales 2017 has 2 episodes that pivot hard into setting up Darkwing Duck. The Duck Knight Returns barely qualifies for this video. While it is about Darkwing, the main cast is still super important. You can definitely excuse it as just setting up Darkwing for the main show. Let's Get Dangerous though? That's just blatantly 40 minutes of the showrunners looking Disney directly in the eyes, telling them they want a Darkwing show. Instead of being set in Duckburg, the cast goes to St. Canard, the world of Darkwing, meeting his adopted daughter and setting up not one, but 5 major villains from the original Darkwing show. I'll have looping Launchpad into the setting even more, as Launchpad is only of the main characters who appeared in both the classic DuckTales show and the classic Darkwing show. As blatant as this is, the episode is still fantastic, as I discussed in my DuckTales video. It's had on great moments for not just the Darkwing cast, but also the original cast too. Most notably being the episode's reveal that Scrooge's head of the board of directors is actually a supervillain. So it's not just commercial, it's actually important to the original series. A Darkwing show was in the cards to be produced by Seth Rogen of all people, but it's been dead silent for years. The show was announced in 2020, DuckTales 2017 ended in 2021, and only minor reports have popped up after that. Notably, one thing from 2025 happened. As at a con, Jim Cummings, the original voice of Darkwing, and the voice of evil Darkwing in the reboot, confirmed he actually recorded lines for the reboot as actual Darkwing. Meaning 2017 Darkwing as a word has lost all meaning to me at this point, has been recasted. As might even imply this doesn't take place in the same universe as DuckTales, potentially being based on the in-universe show of Darkwing, since that's the one Jim voiced. The fact that we got news this year implies the show isn't fully dead, but honestly, half a decade without even a photo of this reboot? Forgive me for being skeptical. Kind of funny when you remember the entire premise of Darkwing spawned from 2 episodes of a classic DuckTales show where Scrooge became a superhero. They liked that so much that they just made a whole show about Duck Superhero. We had Disney and Nick's most obvious and blatant attempts. Let's look at Cartoon Network's biggest one. With Ben 10 being the smash hit it was, it's kind of insane they only ever attempted to build on the show rather than branch off. Yeah, Ben's the face of the franchise, but the rest of the crew could make an interesting lead. Max fighting aliens and keeping them a secret as they found out more about his past. An attempt to actually explain Kevin's confusing backstory and heel face turn while fleshing his relationship with the cast out. Dr. Animal could have a nature documentary show, some ideas for your church. The one that actually got off the ground, tried to, was Lucky Girl starring Gwen. Despite the popularity of Gwen and Kevin, they were largely out of focus for the final of the 4 main shows, Omniverse, as Gwen went to college with Kevin living with her. We did get a few more episodes focusing on Gwen's college life though, revealing that she's still working with her magic alter ego, Lucky Girl, alongside her boyfriend and comic release Kevin, her 2 mentors Basil, an absent-minded janitor who used to be the strongest magician ever, and Hex, a dangerous villain who turned a new leaf to become a teacher, while setting up Charmcaster, Hex's niece and recurring villain in the series, to potentially finally redeem herself as Gwen, Michael Morningstar, Gwen's ex and constant nuisance, and Awaisha. Here to build up for 2 whole shows is one of the most dangerous and intelligent villains in the series who never really got to do anything of note, but is set up to be the main villain of this. We have to realize that while Gwen was a popular character in most places, she was really popular in Japan, especially her Lucky Girl alter ego, seeing as it's basically the closest thing this show has to a magical girl. Assuming you're not a coward and don't call Ben one. Basically what Gwen's Lucky Girl persona is to Japan is what Gur's dog costume is to Hot Topic. C in Asia has the potential to get a full Lucky Girl show. And this could potentially be an anime like Powerpuff Girls Z. This was around the time where Ben 10's popularity was massively waning, with Omniverse being cancelled soon after, and the entire series getting continuity reboots. Meaning there's really no reason to continue with this. Awaisha got friggin' Vanellope Von Switched hard, dog. Continuing with Cartoon Network, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was in this really weird place. It had a decently long run for the late 2010 show, and a few crossovers with things as high profile as Sonic and the entirety of CN. It might be the last original cartoon to have a game. But also, you really don't see a lot of people talk about it, nor does it have a notable presence in CN's social media, so a spin-off doesn't seem likely. No matter how much the crew really wanted to make one with the Hugh Troop. With those unfamiliar with the show aside of Sonic T. Hedgehog, Red Action is eventual girlfriend of one of the main 3 characters, Enid, who's from the future, and a member of the Hugh Troop, a group of Power Ranger-esque women who just kind of do action stuff. While Red Action appears in a few episodes, back in Red Action has a really random turn, of Red taking Enid to the future and interacting with the rest of the Hugh Troop, who are trying to get Red back as he's not supposed to be time traveling. Outside of Enid, this has basically nothing to do with the original show, because the crew confirmed that yes, this was pushed to be a spinoff. Considering again how relatively obscure OKKO is, plus that this was around when CN was fully phasing out a lot of their shows, it's sadly no shock that this got passed over. It's pretty common for cartoons to make jokes about getting spin-offs, but never actually intend to make said spin-off. While I'm not entirely sure if it's a joke or not, is American Dads introducing the naughty stewardesses. This episode is talks about Roger and Steve swapping lives as Steve tries to deal with his crush having a baby from her previous relationship, but also has a plot of 4 crime-fighting stewardesses fighting against Mark Twain's plot to blow up the sun. It's a Charlie's Angels parody, with end credits saying it'll come to Fox and to go to the official Fox website to take a personality quiz on who you are. I got the blonde one, by the way. I am so honored. But while it seems like a joke, also, they really went all in on pushing these characters. They set up motivations for all of them that are barely touched on, set up their whole lore and fighting style, and multiple times say they're going to come back. What's the last time they ever appear? Was it actually planned to be a full series? Probably not. It doesn't fit the mold of other Dick Fallen shows do. But hey, it seems interesting enough to talk about. Skylar's Academy was a weird show. A pretty fun one that reminds me of being a kid again, but again, weird. You're up there kicking away, Wolf. You did a pretty good job of showing off all the characters that you can buy at Toys R Us. Rest in peace. But you know what it really needs? It needs to roll the windows up. Crash and Spyro have for a long time been tied together, and with Crash appearing in one of the Skylanders games, it makes sense for him to appear in the cartoon too. This Crash is significantly different from the game version. Game Crash is an idiot who only talks in noises, while this Crash talks normally and is fairly intelligent. Everyone in this show adores Crash. He gets glazed hardcore in this episode. Spyro becomes a massive fanboy of him. Master Eon says he should get his own show, which, yeah, that had to be the plan, right? I want to say weird Crash never got his own cartoon, seeing how cartoony the guy is by default. Crash appears in a few episodes, including bringing his sister Coco in for the finale, notably a character not in Skylanders in a major way. But sadly, they left Crash broken and homeless. Gargoyle is just a weird show in terms of popularity. Like, it gets merch to this day. It's one of the major sources of story-based shows in Western animation. Most people don't really talk about it, nor does Disney push it super hard. It's so weird how you can see that they clearly wanted to make this a full universe. Disney wanted a superhero universe, as just before they bought Marvel, with tons of potential spin-off ideas set up. And some were dove into in the comics, but most went nowhere. The second season of the show had Goliath and a few other gargoyles growing across the world, and many of them were going to be their own show. Pendragon was going to lead to a show about King Arthur and Griff, who are now in the modern day, growing across the world to find Merlin. There's also an episode of the New Olympians, you never guess what they're setting up, who are of course a group of new residents of Olympus dealing with a devious villain. Whitewashed Megamind. Sentinel is more subtle in what it was trying to do. Having elements of futuristic creatures and elements set with Gargoyles 2198. A series taking place a century after the original, looking at the Descendants' original plan, in a world that now considers Gargoyles a protected minority. Finally, and similarly, there's Future Tense, which sets up the Phoenix Gate, a medallion that lets people travel through space and time. Brooklyn was going to get his hands on this and travel to the future to go on his own adventures in Time Dancer. There's no real reason why any of these were passed over, but hey, I feel like Gargoyles Revival is right around the corner, so hopefully we'll get more of some of these ideas. Another pretty blatant one, Underfist. After Grand Adventures ended, we randomly got a movie where 5 recurring characters in the show, House Delgado, Jeff the Spider, Irwin, Fred Fredbear, and General Scar, form a crime-fighting team to fight evil, even with Scar being a former villain, and Irwin revealing he can turn into a vampire. As much as I love the main trio, Grand Adventures has a great lineup of side characters, and these 5 have rarely interacted in the main show, so it's great to see them interacting. The film carries the same wacky charm as the show, and there's a lot of potential. The ending had a ton of potential film ideas, and the show's creator confirmed not all these were jokes. They were planned. The problem is that Maxwell Adams, the creator of Billy Mandy, had his contract expire shortly after the creation of Underfist. And no matter how successful the show was, they had no interest in continuing the series or renewing his contract. With this being around when they started experimenting with live action, thanks to a shake-up in leadership, we were not getting Underfisted. I'd be interested in something more from this franchise, but with Cian being a corpse and then passing on the new movie, I think Grimm is finally with his dead brethren.
All that work and nothing to show for it!
Alright, so Space Ghost was a Hanna-Barbera action show that got an official Cartoon Network parody show that was moved to Adult Swim, which got a spin-off about a side character, and also got a spin-off of 3 characters which appeared in one episode. It got completely redesigned, which is Aqua Teen, and that show got its own spin-off. It's very easy to follow. Well, that phased out as the show went on. Some earlier episodes include a cold open of a doctor messing around with his assistant, creating various creatures. Later on, this was swapped onto a war between the Moon Knights, 2 aliens based on Atari games, and the Plutonians. Something I'm pretty sure I drew up as a kid when I was high of Pixie Sticks. The Season 3 cold open forms a full narrative, named Space Travs, of the 2 pulling minor pranks at each other, which was intended to become a full series. Aqua Teen is a show with little defined roles, so honestly they could have just done this in the original show. It's pretty funny though. Keeping the original's quirky but laid-back sense of humor with people dying. I love that!
You are free to go. Leave the pie.
Hang on, I gotta call my man.
I don't think there's a need to become a full show, but I would never say no to more Aqua Teen. Simpsons is in a weird place in terms of pop culture. It's one of the longest running and iconic cartoons of all time, but outside the movie and a few shorts, they never really made Homer as big as he deserves. They did want to though, with 22 short films about Springfield. It's more well known as Steve Hammond's episode. How big Springfield is and how many lovable characters there are besides the family makes sense to do a series all about the various characters, with setting up Tales from Springfield, which should be exactly that. While this episode is of course best known for the Steve Hammond bit, it's one of my favorite episodes. It has Mo. I like Mo. The crew felt like doing a second show would be too much work though and scrapped it. But hey, it's still a fun episode. Hanna-Barbera is really among the first cinematic universes. Other shows are interconnected and major crossover in various shorts and specials. Scooby-Doo is of course the king of crossovers, appearing as the main focus in a lot of these, but also having it built into its DNA in one of their shows, the new Scooby-Doo movies. Usually these episodes had the mystery gang meet a special guest, usually a celebrity, and basically just solve some mystery with them. Two of them meet with fictional characters though, Addams Family and Batman and Robin. These were among the first time these characters were animated, and notably before their big first cartoon appearances in the Addams Family and Super Friends. Were they specifically made to test grounds for full shows with them? Potentially. What's far less questionable was Hong Kong Phooey of all things. In its final episode, Phooey barely got any screen time, instead focusing on brand new characters. Honcho, Mysterious Maverick, and the Impossible Posse were all set up to be major characters, all clearly made to have their own show. The thing is, only Impossible Posse did the impossible and got one, with mostly forgotten CB bears. The other two, shackled to obscurity, with only this episode to their name. Imagine your whole legacy being Hong Kong Phooey. Phineas and Ferb has got to be the king of failed backdoor pilots. How big the show was for Disney, they clearly wanted it to be the next big moneymaker they could do anything with, which they kind of got, seeing as we got 2 movies, 2 shows in the same universe, a bunch of web shows, a theme park attraction, and a recent reboot. But when the summer was coming to an end, they debated on what they should do after. Doof was a character they immediately went to, with multiple episodes trying to set up potential new shows. All of it went nowhere. Doof 101 and the Nader Method were 2 episodes made to set up Doof as a teacher. The Nader Method was definitely more subtle of the two, as it at least had a normal boys and Candace subplot, but Doof 101 was super blatant. Doof was now a teacher of Vanessa's class. The principal hates Doof for stealing Charlene from him, Perry is still there to help out, and 3 bugs are trying to reveal themselves to the world, who intended to be in the show from the start, but only appeared now for the first time. It's a fine episode, but the concept just screams, we need to do something with Doof, and nothing with any real passion. This didn't need to be a show. Neither did OWCA Files, an episode I talked about in my video on Phoenix First special episodes, where after the original show ended, Carrie leads a group of OWCA agents, including Doof who counts as an ocelot, and they keep messing up against a new villain, who's secretly a cockroach. The bugs from Doof 101 return have no real connections on the main story, which is weird because the cockroach guy wants bugs to be respected, and the 3 bugs want to be noticed, and they do nothing with that. It's made to be more targeted towards kids, and it's fine, but hey, we got Milo Murphy instead, which is way more awesome and cool. Superhero properties are well known for having a million spin-offs and characters, so it comes as a shock that it'll lead to a million cartoons, which will lead to millions of companies wanting to spawn even more cartoons from it. The 90s Spider-Man show, for example, we only had a 2-parter about Daredevil. With Kingpin being a recurring villain who had connection to both Daredevil and Spider-Man, they included him pretty naturally, even with this line,
taking your family. The police have your son, and I have you.
Daredevil's design is actually really cool here with a different line work and lighting, making him look red and black. So yeah, I'd be down for more. Another Spidey show, Spider-Man Has Amazing Friends, also had an episode with the X-Men, to set up an X-Men show prior to the X-Men, which I actually discussed in my Cancel Pilots video. Wolverine carries his Australian accent from that pitch, along with a few members, but of course, it never came to be. The first Spider-Man cartoon was part of a whole universe of 90s Marvel cartoons, which also had a ton of crossover from different shows. 2 of them, Iron Man and Fantastic Four, had Hulk show up before he got his own show. Ghost Rider wasn't as lucky, appearing in Fantastic Four and Hulk, but not getting his own cartoon. DC wasn't much better, as the Superman show had the episode In Brightest Day, where Superman barely appears, while Kyle Rayner, you know, the guy who loses to Simone, has his backstory set up, alongside the introduction of the main villain Sinestro. Yeah, this is pretty clear to set up the Green Lantern, baby. Remember every vowel. But next time, there were no words from the Lantern Council. Kyle didn't appear again save for a silent cameo until the sequel series Justice League Unlimited over a decade later. And while Green Lantern was in the original Justice League, it was Jon Stewart, not Kyle. Batman the Animated Series had an episode where Ra's al Ghul tells his cowboy story with Batman being only part of the framing device, with the main book being about Jonah Hex. Sadly, Hex never got a show, which would have been fun because, like, cowboys. Ending off this segment, it really shouldn't be a shock how Teen Titans Go decided to spread its roots even further with a crossover. The 4-part episode, Beast Boy's That's What's Up, is about Beast Boy meeting with a Doom Patrol, focusing mostly on Beast Boy, the clear favorite of the Go writing staff, and and the Doom Patrol, who had a show the same year, so they were probably betting on these being big characters. We never got anything from this. Assuming because Go is such a massive show, you don't really need a spinoff. So most of these went nowhere, but I did mention a few that did. So are there any more that actually got off the ground? I think the most blatant is from Loud House of all shows. During season 4, the first few episodes started with Ronnie Ann, Lincoln's girlfriend, interrupting the show and telling the audience to meet her family. The episodes themselves being all about Ronnie's family, with the main Loud family rarely appearing. Shortly after, the Casagrande started airing. Cloverfield had a lot of episodes that could clearly be set up for spin-offs. It was also easy to miss thanks to the show's anthology formats, but a few are more blatant, like one arc having Ahsoka deal with a bunch of young Jedi kids, which feels so obvious for a spin-off. I assume they didn't go through because, was very blatantly set up for the show though. The final season randomly cuts to a group of clones called the Bad Batch. Failed clones who broke away to make their own gang. Genuinely the most blatant one here. I swear Disney forced them to do this. And yeah, they got their own show shortly after. While Animaniacs was always about multiple different segments, they tended to split the segments fairly frequently. Spellbound was solely about Pinky and the Brain, clearly the most popular non-Warner sibling segments, for the full runtime. And it clearly paid off because Pinky and the Brain are almost as well loved as the original. The Arthur episode, Postcards from Buster, completely shook up the original show, being about Buster visiting a place and recording it, with what he records being live action. Arthur and EW were in this as well, but they were brutally cut off when the show became real, and Buster found out what lesbians were. Dora has an episode named Meet Diego. Do the math. With the recent announcement of Lars of the Stars, it's a little hard to not see the episode of the same name in the same universe as a clear backdoor pilot, setting up Lars and the off-colors in their own little missions. In the funniest example of this, the Mater's tall tale short, Air Mater, has Mater turn directly to the camera and say, "They should make a movie about planes." Similar thing happened in 2013. And then, there's Rugrats. Shockingly, the most obvious and blinding example of this, weirdly enough, is not an example. All Grown Up seems so key like it's supposed to set up a full All Grown Up show. The thing is, it was supposed to be a fun one-off showing the babies as adults. But since it was so popular, being the #1 highest reviewed premiere on Nick to this day, made them decide to make it a full show. They didn't realize it really only works as a fun one-off, and making a full show kind of ruins the fun of Rugrats, but okay. The thing is, even after All Grown Up, they released the opposite. A show aging down the oldest member of the crew, Angelica, with preschool days. It got a show. It is ugly. It sucks and was canceled after 4 episodes. We must kill babies. And that was a handful of Backdoor pilot spin-offs. I could, of course, discuss more, but this is just like a nice little sampling size. Of course, I do actually have a ulterior motive of making this. I want to announce my own spin-off as well. You!
That was fun. Hey, they ought to make a whole movie about planes.